Let's party, let's rock, coming soon to the Cinemark. Ooh, oh yeah.
Just what you are.
Welcome to the Cinematic Void Podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Hey, Nick Vance, Paranoid Futures on all social media. You can find Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms. If you want to support The Void, you can consider joining our Patreon. Not only get cool perks, you may get this podcast as well as the Cinemadness movie possible. All right, Jim, I just saw you like 2 days ago, but what are we talking about today?
Yeah, we got the podcasting bug. We're fucking back, baby. This episode is, well, it's going to be talking about what's coming up in the Void in February, the lineup at the Lost Fields 3, but last time we were recording, we noticed some things that we started talking about, and it's like, hey, it's film related. We do a film related podcast, sort of, maybe. I guess we kind of talk about films, and I thought there was some value in discussing it. So there was a couple things we saw on Twitter, that cesspool of website that everyone thought was going to disappear, and everyone was like, see you later, and then no one fucking left.
Yeah, that was actually really funny, yes.
Come on now. No one, well, some people left, but not really. There was two things we saw, and one was about a screening of Vertigo, and how the audience just kind of laughed through it. Yeah. And, people being pissed and, like, being angry, and, like, here's the thing, and I hate to break it to people because I've been going to rep cinema for I don't even know, 20 plus years at this point. People have always laughed at inappropriate things. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. It's like, actually, I'll even go further. When I was in film school, when we watched certain movies, certain people laughed.
But I think that some of these tweets that you're talking about in particular, or just a complaint a lot of times, ends up being a little ageist. Yeah. I think that a lot of times it is, though. It's younger audience, especially if we're looking at something like Vertigo, specifically in modern times. I just automatically assume that you're talking about it's a bunch of teenagers or kids in their 20s.
I think what's happening now is that it's a new wave of watching movies ironically. This has been a complaint that I've seen for fucking decades now. Yeah. And it pops up here and there, but it just seemed like there's a lot of it popping up. And I guess
it's always been a thing, but it was definitely different film. You can, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example that, when we're watching fucking Meatballs 2, it's like, well, we know it's ridiculous. Yeah. We're watching it because it's fucking ridiculous. We're certainly not watching Vertigo because it's ridiculous.
But there's a section of human beings.
I can't accept that.
Well, there clearly is. I think the problem is that now a lot of the kind of standard very hard line things that people who get into film and watch film always stood by, Vertigo is a stone cold classic or whatever, because it was I think it was the AFI or Sight and Sound. It was it was listed as the number one movie for good years. It dethroned Citizen Kane and shit. Yeah. And I think a lot of things have happened last year. It's culturally things have changed. Opinion of Hitchcock as a person, not a filmmaker, as a person has changed.
And of course, my opinion is that has nothing to do with anything.
It doesn't. But for this particular audience, and I don't want to speak, this is more of me just theoretically trying to understand humans and why humans react the way they do. Mm-hmm. It's we were kind of, before we record this, we're talking there's a certain segment of people who think Vertigo is just a bad movie. And the only reason they think of a bad movie is because they look at all the personal shit with Hitchcock, and anything that's
I would go as far as to say that a lot of the people that would say Vertigo is a bad movie didn't pay close enough attention, and by the time it got to the end of it, they were confused. I think that's a large majority of the. I don't think it's people digging into Hitchcock's personal life. This is just me speaking. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't realize that there was such a giant backlash against Hitchcock. Maybe there is. Well, I'm sure he's got some skeletons in his closet.
There's been a couple things. There's the whole Tippi Hedren thing and the birds, and their relationship, how they treated or how he treated her and stuff like that.
Throwing
and, like,
birds at her.
Yeah, throwing birds at her, and like it's the same with the Kubrick, Shelley Duvall stuff, you know. And
Dario Argento throwing birds
cats,
or cats rather. Yeah,
they haven't gone for Dario yet over this,
Yeah.
but like, but it's things like that, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like the thing we talked about last episode when we were talking about Deep Red and Tenebrae, and like people like, I don't understand a plot, it's confusing. It's no, you're just not fucking paying attention.
So I think that's definitely what's going on with Vertigo in particular, is that, you know, I think that it goes over a lot of people's heads, and then between that and then it just something being from, you know, if you haven't seen a lot of old films and then you just go, all right, well, I'm going to watch Vertigo because it's supposed to be a classic, and you're not used to the pacing of an old film, things like that. That's why you're going to get low ratings on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever the fuck.
Well, it's not even right.
You know?
It's letterbox reviews is what
Yeah.
it is. It's just like, because you can go on there and like, you know, things that like make Vertigo people don't like. It's like Jimmy Stewart's character is a fucking creep. He's clearly recreating a woman into the vision of the woman that he loves. You know, there's that shit. And like, you know, under the lens of 2023, some people are going to have a problem with it. And I think like what you said about people not paying attention is one thing. I also think people don't care to engage with art as it is. And that's the biggest thing. Like when I watch a movie, depending on what time period it was made, I engage with it differently. I'm not going to like put the standards of a fucking 1970s movie on a Charlie Chaplin film or a Buster Keaton film, because that's fucking ludicrous. Like completely different environments, completely different ways of making movies. And while I might not be the biggest silent film head or whatever, but like I can appreciate, and you can see like, wow, there's some fucking techniques that are done in these movies that still are done now. Same like watching like Battleship Potemkin, and you get to the Odessa Steps sequence in that montage. That's still fucking incredible. And they still use that technique to this fucking day. But I think a lot of people, when they look at film, it's like, I think it's a lot of streaming culture and it's access. And it's like, I think a lot of studios have done a disservice to their back catalog. Maybe not the Criterion Channel, and maybe like things like that. Or, what's the fucking library one that everyone uses?
Canopy?
Canopy, there you go. Because there's options of like, you know, more classic films. Like shit like that.
Is that just, you know, the marketplace?
I mean, it might be the marketplace, but it's also a choice, you know? It's like, you know, TCM.
There's just no demand for it, so they just, I mean, that's just how the studios operate, right? It's about the money. They don't care about the culture of it at all.
But they
I
should.
I mean, you know, of course they do. I think they do, but you know, it just, you look at the things that are coming out today.
I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I also just think like, you know, when I was in film school, people had a cutoff date of what they want to watch film-wise. And when I was in film school, people didn't want to go past 1990.
I mean, I have huge blind spots for, you know, I don't know much before like definitely the 50s.
Yeah.
I don't know much from the 50s. I'm not a big noir guy. Like I should go back to some of that. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm definitely not a silent movie guy. I've seen very few things before, say, 1950. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I need to change that.
But the difference is you acknowledge you have blind spots, but you're willing to engage with it. Where people when they have run across a blind spot, they're just watching it and like, they're watching with a 2023 lens.
Yeah.
And that is it. Here's the best example. It's going to see some Picasso art, but expecting to get a Mona Lisa. It's like there's nothing wrong with either thing. They're two different styles. They're two different ways of art. But you cannot look at a Picasso and put the Mona Lisa aesthetic or expect that from it.
Right.
But people, that's what everyone wants, fucking McDonald's. That's all it is. And then it's like, you know, I'm going to say this. People will laugh at, like, I think the scene that people were complaining online they're laughing at was the scene where Jimmy Stewart's character is like, oh, you know, he's having vertigo, and like that shot, and like I guess they found it weird and laughable. But it's like, I'll say this. The worst fucking visual effect in Vertigo is still better than any fucking effect in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, like that scene in particular you're talking about, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great representation of exactly what that feels like too. Like that startling holy shit, I'm up way too high.
Yeah.
And it kind of,
But people just want to laugh at it because it's like, oh, it seems antique or whatever. But it's like, also a lot of people like that are like laughing at stuff haven't really lived life either. Yeah. Like if you know, a lot of people are.
these damn young people.
It's not young. I mean, there's been people like this for years. Yeah. There's been people like this. It's more prevalent because like for whatever reason, people just don't choose to fucking engage with stuff. Mm-hmm. People like only will go see things that they heard they should see, and then when it doesn't meet this expectation, that's the other thing. It's like expectations might be too high for a lot of stuff now. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, when I was in film school, all you ever heard is Citizen Kane's the greatest fucking movie ever. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic movie, but in the same time, when I start seeing other Orson Welles movies, it's one I don't really revisit because I feel like when he had less money and he was working through chaos and he's like dubbing 15 different voices in this movie because he has to, I think Orson Welles made more interesting stuff after Citizen Kane. Yeah. Because Citizen Kane was was the movie, he had everything. He had fucking Greg Tolan, one of the great DPs as a DP. He had Robert Wise as his fucking editor. You know, Bernard Herrmann did the goddamn score. It's like he had everything. It's like you can't fuck that up. Literally, you cannot fuck that up. Mm-hmm. So I'm just more interested in what he did after that when like he didn't have like the all-star team working with him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But, you know, someone watches Citizen Kane, they're going to look at it like, oh, I don't like this because of fucking something that doesn't jive with a 2023 lens. And I think that's the other thing. And I just hate to say it, it's just like rep audience have kind of always been that way. Mm-hmm. And another thing we saw, and I think this was more recent, well, they're both recent, but like more recent than the other thing is like, I think there was a screening of Lady Snowblood, and a bunch of the audience were openly laughing during a rape scene. Yeah. And there's two schools of thought on this. And I think we can talk about both. One is that there's just people who are just fucking assholes. Yeah. And they're just fucking assholes. And two, people laugh when they're uncomfortable because they don't know how to engage with art.
Absolutely. I've been waiting for a screening of Irreversible. I haven't ever seen it on the screen, you know. But yeah, I don't know what that feeling is going to be like seeing that in the theater with other people and having to go through that rape scene in particular and how everyone reacts to that. You know, it's very uncomfortable. So yeah, it's that laughter can even be kind of you can't control yourself. You're just so, feeling so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it Irreversible first run.
It's like not a disrespectful laugh. It's a fuck, holy fuck, you know?
Because people don't know what to do. Like, when I saw Irreversible, no one was fucking laughing. Half the audience left even before the rape scene when they're in the fucking club.
Right, like the fire extinguisher.
Yeah, like, well, the people were fucking filing out even before the fire extinguisher, like, head bash thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it was clearing fucking house. And that's a powerful movie. But then, like, there's people now, though, like, something as transgressive, like as Cannibal Holocaust, people will laugh at. Yeah. They'll laugh at the fucking animal cruelty and all that. And it's like, people are assholes and people think they're better than movies and stuff like that. Or actually it could be both. People think they're better than the movie and they're also uncomfortable. Because that's the other thing. It's like, even a movie I don't like, I can at least respect because it's hard to make a movie. And like, I'm not giving a movie pass because it was, making movies is hard. Like,
right. Like I hate plenty of movies, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, but a lot, even the movie you hate the most, people really worked really hard on that.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. It's just like, that's why I kind of take when, I try to. I know I don't know. I'll fucking say I hate something.
But also talking shit is fun.
Yeah, talking shit's fun, but like talking shit is fun after you've seen the movie and you're talking to your friends, not kind of talking shit or like laughing through it as you're watching it.
Indeed.
And if it's something I know I don't like, I don't fucking engage with it. Because, like, I know what my taste is. I'm fucking old. Like, I'm willing to try new things, but also at the same time, I know what I don't like. Like, I'm not going to go to a rep screening of a musical. I'm not a musical guy. Yeah. I also don't like a lot of sci-fi stuff, so I'm not going to actively go to screenings for that, because, like, why am I going to go subject myself to something that isn't for me? But people, the other thing is, like, it's weird. We have the internet, which will tell you everything you need to know. Not always correctly, but enough.
Mm-hmm.
And people come in just based on, like, a blog or a fucking Letterboxd review and stuff like that. And it's just like, I love Letterboxd. I know you do too. But sometimes I look at reviews people write and it's just like, I just want to fucking slap them.
Yeah. Hey, it just occurred to me, is there maybe something I'm not aware of? Are there any, is there like a something like in this particular era, like, is there a film, aside from the, the Rocky Horror Picture, like stuff where people go to participate, like The Room, there's stuff like that. But is there anything that's like not actually a bad movie that people have turned into its reputation of being a bad movie, where they actively go to the screenings and laugh at it, like it's a activity that people go do? Is there anything like that? Is it to that extreme of a degree, or is it just a little more like you just hear people laughing at something they fucking shouldn't be?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff like, I don't want to call it Outfest, but there's Anti-Maim.
Mm-hmm.
And Anti-Maim is very over the top, and like it's been, adapted into like, gay culture and like the way, like, as this kind of a celebration. That's why they show it every Christmas. However, when Outfest does screenings of other films, a lot of people come in expecting Anti-Maim, and they put that expectation on it.
Gosh.
Again, not trying to call them out, but like they did a screening of The Hunger back in October, and I saw some complaints online about people laughing during The Hunger, of all fucking things. Mm-hmm. Like laughing at it like it's Rocky Horror, like trying to like make it that. Yeah. And I'm going to say it just depends on the crowd's expectations and what they're kind of accustomed to, because like I showed The Hunger back in February, and I got like all the fucking goths who were like really in the Bauhaus and like had always wanted to see that movie, and like the Tony Scott fucking heads and that kind of stuff. So it also depends on how you present a movie.
I'm reminded back in the day of us going to family screenings and them like actively passing beers down the aisle and stuff like that. And I think those were maybe some midnight screenings and stuff like that. I can't remember what they were in particular, but it was kind of encouraging like a rowdy, a rowdier screening, and kind of let's make this a party atmosphere, which is also contributes to that. I mean, that's what that is when we're yelling at the screen and laughing at bullshit and whatever too. I don't know, just throwing it out there that I feel like I've been to screenings where
it's been,
but it wasn't straight up like, hey, we're all here to clown this either.
Yeah.
Like it was, it was some gray area there.
Sometimes like, I show a lot of exploitation, horror and stuff, and like, they're audience movies. So the audience is supposed to fucking laugh and have a good time. And like, not everything is going to...
Cobra is also funny.
Yeah, Cobra is also funny. Like
shit that's over the top is... I mean, that is funny. So that's also something to mention, though, is like, we're not even saying like, don't... I don't know. We're not saying anything. I'm not personally telling anyone how to...
Well, that's the other thing. It's
behave, or how to take in art. Necessarily. I'm just commenting on it. I'm not telling you can approach art however you fucking want, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, this is more of like a social dissection, because I feel like as bad as audiences who refuse to engage with the movie how it should be and just want to like feel like they're above the movie, I think that sucks. You can't really control how other people react. Well, actually, you can. You can in your intro. You can curate your audience. Mm-hmm. The other standoff is if you just if you're like, I'm not going to go to rep screenings anymore because like the audience is like that. The audience isn't always like that.
Right. You just maybe need to find a different rep screening, someone that just a different organization.
Well, it's not even organization. It's
like you say, it's screen. You do one thing, someone else does a completely different thing. Well, Beyond Fest are throwing cakes at people.
Yeah. And well, that's the other thing. It's like, the way a screening is curated, how it's intro, like all that stuff goes into how the audience experiences it, straight up. Like there's probably, if you had a Vertigo screening and you had a fucking guy lecturing or a woman lecturing, just talking about like the nuance and like, like all the fucking crazy things that are actually in Vertigo and like the neuroses and like the, Hitchcock's fetishes and shit like that. If you had someone give context, it plays different. You know, it's just, that's the thing. It's like because when I set up a show, it's like, it's cinematic void. It's supposed to be fun. But not always. Like, I think back when I showed Hour of the Wolf, and I just want the audience to actually engage with the film. Because I was afraid, and they end up doing it this way. They just fucking sat on hands, dead silent, like they were sitting at home watching it on the fucking Criterion channel.
Yeah.
When you're not paying attention, you're not looking at the humor, you're not looking at the horror, you're just fucking watching something. It's just like going in your eyes, and it's not really registering in your brain. And that sucks too. And it's like, you know, I don't want it to be like, woo, party, Hour of the Wolf kind of shit. I just want people to like, you can laugh when it's fucking funny. You can get repulsed when it's horrifying, you know?
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's also, we're talking about people laughing at inappropriate points in films, but also, as I had mentioned in the last episode, watching Deep Red, you know, they get into the car and all this ridiculous shit happens. And on my first watch, I didn't realize that was intended to be funny and that was like a comedic moment. So it's just the exact opposite of what we're saying here.
Yeah.
But also during Hour of Wolf, that same sort of thing did occur.
Yeah.
Where just people didn't get that it's funny.
And because people have certain standards, like when people think Ingmar Bergman,
well, when it's just
they think it's a fucking serious art film. Like, you know,
I personally also would not have expected jokes.
Oh,
not at all.
There's all kinds of funny like little one-liners in it, and just observations, and it's just like, it's not humorless. Like most movies have jokes in them.
But that's just something that I think that I was taught in that last instance. There is just from now looking forward, not just Argento films. I mean, just across the board. Like, I need to keep my eyes open a little more and realize that, you know, and sometimes the jokes are from another culture. Things like that. So you got to keep your eyes open in a different way to accept them, to fucking laugh at them.
I mean,
to get it at all.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, especially when you're watching movies that are made in other countries, because you're watching a movie made with a different sensibility and a different style and a different way of making films. And it's just like, if you just watch everything the same way, you're just cheating yourself. And I guess the bigger point is like, you know, you can't tell how people fucking, you know, react to a movie. Like, I feel like if people are laughing their asses off to Nightmare City or Burial Ground, that's appropriate because those movies are fucking ridiculous. You cannot sell them as fucking serious like horror movies. And I'm pretty sure the filmmakers, like, because of the budget and because of like the constraints of making it, they did shit because it's like, fuck it, I don't care, you know. And I'm not saying like they're being lazy or filmmakers. It's like sometimes like they're just embracing the ridiculousness of what they're doing, and it's just like, I gotta entertain myself while making it.
Yeah,
it's like, because like the Gonzo stream of consciousness like carries over, and like it's a rewarding experience that way. But then I think about like something like The Elephant Man, which like I remember years ago, The Egyptian, we did a screening of it, and like there was almost a fight because there was a bunch of people that got drunk, watched The Elephant Man, and started laughing through it.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, speaking of Jesus, when I was a kid, speaking of the homie Jesus, when I was a kid, actually my only reference to the Elephant Man film at all is that my family started going to a church when I was like maybe, I don't know, 8, 9, whatever the hell. And we started hanging out at the preacher of the church's house with their family. Like, they had 2 kids or whatever. So it was like me and my sisters would go over there and we'd hang out. And they weren't allowed to have TV at all. They watched no TV, nothing. Like, they didn't have shit. They had no video. They didn't have Nintendo. The only fucking thing they did have a computer that they basically like weren't allowed to use, and then there was a TV, and it was like up in a cabinet, like you couldn't get to it and shit, with a VCR, and there was just one tape, and it was the Elephant Man. And it was always just weird to me, like, what the fuck is the Elephant Man? And you know, years later I found out, but yeah, that was the only movie that they were allowed to watch.
And I'm sure they weren't laughing through it. Yeah. Or maybe, I mean, they might not have no choice. That might have been, I don't know. I think of other times of like I've seen, you know, audience reactions that, you know, weren't meant to be. Paul Thomas Anderson famously talked about like Boogie Nights early screenings, where like, this is a spoiler for Boogie Nights, so if you haven't seen it, you might want to pause or skip, but
You've had enough time to watch Boogie Nights.
You've had enough fucking time to watch Boogie Nights at this point. So there's a scene. It's on New Year's, and where William Macy like has enough of his cheating wife. He goes to the car and gets a gun, and everyone's laughing. And then he goes and shoots his wife and the person she's fucking. And everyone's laughing, and Paul is mortified. It's like, did I do this wrong? And like, I think his producer was saying like, no, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just the audience. This is how the audience like chooses to engage with it. And he's like feeling down. And then Macy's character fucking blows his brains out, and the audience shuts the fuck up. That's his exact words. The audience shuts the fuck up.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's like basically taking an expectation, taking an audience who think they're really clever and think something's funny, and fucking kicking them in the balls.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And I think that's also a brilliant way too, because like some filmmakers do subvert that expectation. Like obviously he didn't want people laughing to that point, but then like the audience paid the price for like taking it as a joke.
Yeah.
Which is a really amazing thing to happen. It's just like the way people engage with art now, and it's just like you can't control it. But it's like I've gone to plenty of rep screenings over the years, and like, you know, depending on the context, depending on if it's a screening series, depending on who's presenting it or format, I also feel like when you get into bigger films like Vertigo or like 2001 or Lawrence Arabia, you start getting what I call like the multiplex crowd, and that's a completely different audience.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, like the worst rep audience is nowhere near as bad as the like a regular like packed house at it like AMC or a fucking Regal or something like that.
Yeah, you haven't truly been to war until you've had 2 weeks with The Irishman.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this. I like The Irishman as a movie. I
love it actually.
That fucking run was awful. Yeah. And it was just the crowd, because it was a multiplex crowd. Mm-hmm. Like there's certain movies they'll come out for, like It's a Wonderful Life, like fucking standards or whatever bullshit or whatever. And like that crowd is fucking abysmal. And like I don't know, well, I guess because most of the time in multiplexes, like no one has to deal with it. They're all behind a concession stand.
Have you seen the video of people filming a rap video in front of Avatar, for the new Avatar? That's what happens at a multiplex.
Yeah. The second like someone like brings up a phone at a rep screening, it's like, turn off your fucking cell phone.
Yeah.
Like just
Thankfully.
But I also feel like I have a problem with that too.
Yeah.
Let me clarify.
Go get someone that works there.
Yeah.
You don't have to actually scream in the theater, but
yeah, that's the other thing. It's like,
but also at the multiplex, people are just straight up fighting in the theater, like fist fights.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many like actual. I've seen close people actually yelling at each other in the theater, but fist fights, I haven't seen those. So thankfully.
And I'm going to tell you the secret to avoiding that in a multiplex: go to a matinee.
Yeah.
You'll deal with old people who get confused and they'll leave.
Yeah.
Because they realize they're in the wrong movie. I feel like the audience experience is like, what's worse, a crowd of people laughing inappropriately at a movie, or someone like getting mad because someone's breaking protocol and then screaming and disrupting the movie?
Yeah, it's maybe more disruptive for sure when you're just yelling at someone on their phone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about going to a movie, I honestly think there's no feeling quite like it. Mm-hmm. It's the greatest communal experience. Like, I don't fucking go to church. I'm not, in the traditional religious sense religious, but cinema's a church, and like you have a communal experience, and you're laughing, you're getting excited, you're getting scared, you're going through all kinds of emotions, and like, yeah, like a shitty crowd can do that. There was a couple movies I saw at other theaters that like the crowd was just like being weird or whatever, like kind of getting into the ironic zone. And what I ended up doing was like, I just kind of like forced myself to put blinders on and just focus on the screen. And I just fucking tuned everyone out. And it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but it's like, you know what? I know what experience I want from this movie. I know what I'm going to get. I'm not going to let this audience dictate it for me. And that's the other thing. It's like, you do have control. Obviously, you can choose not to go to rep screenings. Obviously, if they're really being disruptive, you can tell someone in the theater. Obviously, you can't control when people laugh. And that's the thing. We used to have staff meetings where like this would come up, and like, the debate of like, what do you do? And like, ultimately, it's like, you kind of have, if the communal experience is people going to laugh in a movie, that's what the communal experience is going to be.
Yeah,
right or wrong.
Yeah, but you're right in the sense that you can control it to some extent in the intro and just kind of setting the tone for the evening.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But sometimes people are going to laugh. Sometimes people are going to laugh, and it is what it is. And maybe sometimes I guess we can acknowledge though that maybe in some sense, aside from just respecting the technical aspects of something, sometimes some things that are old, its customs kind of have become ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
So they have become laughable.
Yeah, and that's the other thing you have to deal with. Like, and also,
not that I have a good example or anything,
no,
but it's got to exist.
The other thing I think a lot of people also need to think of is like when people are laughing and you feel like they're ironically watching something like Vertigo or whatever, there's also a chance that like even though they're doing that, they come out of liking the movie or loving the movie, or it becomes a fucking like, I don't want to say earworm, more of a like there's something clicks in them and it kind of opens their doors to other movies. So yeah, they might have been an asshole at this particular screening, but their world might be open up to film and they might be willing to start engaging and stuff. And that's the other reason, like, I don't want to dismiss like whether someone's ironically watching or something, because at the end of the day, like, they might have laughed at like some awkward fucking Jimmy Stewart shit or whatever, but like they could go and like, wow, I kind of like this movie, or they can't stop thinking about it, or they're like, well, I want to check out more Hitchcock, or I want to check out more movies like this, and it's a gateway. Right. And as much as like I never need to see Lawrence Arabia or 2001 ever fucking again in the theater, because of the amount of times like the Cinematheque has played them, someone's gonna go see it for the first time, and someone's either gonna be like get their mind blown, or like if they don't, they might choose to start getting interested in films other than what's like fed to them on a fucking streamer algorithm or whatever. They might take a chance and go see something.
If you haven't seen 2001 on mushrooms in particular, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand how people engage with stuff, because like we were also talking about like, because we talk a lot about music on this podcast, which probably goes over like, I don't know what the percentage is. I know there's people that come up to me and you and like, hey, it's cool you talked about like such and such punk band or whatever.
I think when I was younger, I was made the mistake of thinking that like everybody that was into like metal music was also into horror movies and shit like that. You know what I mean? That it always went hand in hand, but that's not entirely true. It's funny when you talk to people that are just like super into film, but they don't know music at all. I don't know. It's not funny, but it's just interesting.
Well, it is interesting because there's people that are like, oh man, like, I'm going to use this as an example because I think it's a good example. The Pixies. Like, wow, I really like the Pixies. What song have you heard? Where's My Mind? Where'd you hear it at? Fight Club.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking it because that should be an introduction, and like, you should be able to listen to that song and then you should go listen to Doolittle, which is a fucking amazing album. However, there's also people that won't engage past the fact that the song was the movie. Like, I love movie soundtracks. I love when like songs are used really well in movies, but like at the same time, this is again engagement. It's like, where does your exploring end? You should want to explore music and movies and all that. And I feel like, in general, it's just like what I see is like not even gatekeeping in a way, but like self-gatekeeping. Like the unwillingness to go beyond your comfort zone. Yeah. And like I watch shit all the time that like I might not actually like, and I'll take a chance on a band that I might not actually like. Because we live in the streaming world. Having endless access to things like can be overwhelming, but like it's also opportunity to discover. And I don't know, it's just like I guess the bigger point of what we were talking about here is just like people are going to discover shit. And obviously there's always going to be these things that are on pedestals, and people don't like when something's on a pedestal and it doesn't get the reaction they had to it. But it's also like, you saw like some of these people saw Vertigo in like the 80s when like it was fucking newly remastered or whatever, There's people just seeing it for the first time, like in a completely different context and a completely different like world, really. And it's like, yeah, it kind of sucks that most people won't willingly like engage with art as the art is and want to like shove everything under like a modern lens. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like eventually some of these people are going to break that mold.
We also just have all of cinema from the time Vertigo was made up until fucking yesterday to look at.
Yeah.
You know? So, and if they've only experienced the films that they were going to see at the multiplex as they're growing up, and then they go, I'm going to dip my toes in classic film.
I mean, there's a huge fucking gap of difference.
Right.
Like,
they grew up in the 2000s or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to disparage young people. I don't mean it that way. But when we're talking about like the new generation of film goers or people that are just, you know, the people that are getting into it, I have a feeling that not everyone is, you know, like me and only started giving a fuck in their 40s or whatever. You know what I mean? It's probably, I'm imagine that most people that are really trying to just dip their toes in film or whatever the fuck, if you're only seeing Vertigo for the first time, you're probably right. I mean, I don't know. I just saw the fucking Godfather not that long ago. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I mean,
everyone has their own, you know, timeline of when they see things and whatever the fuck.
The thing about cinephiles is like, and I've said this before when I talk about like trying like, you know, get a horror convention crowd to a horror film screening. A cinephile and someone goes to film school are completely different. Because when I went to film school, I'd seen a lot of film, and I was really excited to like, you know, learn.
Meaning before you went, you had already seen a lot of film.
Yeah, and I was like, I took the opportunity to go to film school, especially film history and like individual classes, to fucking engage with things that I had never seen, like, you know, a lot of foreign films and stuff like that. You know, having the opportunity to see Kurosawa for the first time or whatever. And that kind of stuff. But then there was also people that would go to film school because they saw Pulp Fiction and they just wanted to make their own version of Pulp Fiction. And their film history started in 1993 or 94 and went from there.
The 90s were exciting. We don't need to bridge off into this too much, but the 90s were an exciting time, and I can definitely understand how a lot of that kind of 90s like renegade cinema really influenced the next generation, and that's where they started. You know? I mean, it really was just a different time coming out of the 80s and the suckage of the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, as much as I show a lot of 80s stuff, there's a lot of garbage made in the 80s. There, you know, cocaine wasn't as good as it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, films on cocaine in the 70s, incredible. Films on cocaine in the 80s, you get a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Because when you do too much coke, it's a fucking mess.
It never ends well.
You're right in what you said. Like, most people that are, you know, dipping their toes in classic films now, they're really young and going to film school or whatever reason they're checking out films. Because, like, you know, I've seen this down the board. I've seen people like, how dare they laugh at fucking Hard Boiled, John Woo movie. And it's just like, they also don't have, like, you know, the respect because, you know, when I first saw Hard Boiled, it was available on VHS, but like before that, it was really fucking hard to see. Like, there's people like occasionally those movies would play satellite and people were taping them off there or like getting off bootlegs of Laserdisc or like that kind of stuff.
Almost like you had to work so hard to see it that by the time you got there, you couldn't laugh at it.
Well, no, because you appreciated the opportunity to see it. And like, I think Access also has a play in here when stuff is like, I mean, I feel like if studios would be more willing to like drop some more classics on the streaming platforms and made them available for people to see, whether they like it or not, it changes the thing. Because like, I just feel like you're not losing any money, you know. I would like, there's fucking tons of fucking terrible goddamn movies on every streaming platform.
But you're saying that you know specifically that Paramount has this and this and they don't have it up, or HBO owns this and they don't have it up, etc. Like, that's for sure across the board. There's a lot. I mean,
they'll occasionally have stuff up, but it's like, you know, there's lots of different movies, and there's like, when you own a classic library and you don't do anything with it, like, that's
like I am genuinely curious how that works. If they own the rights to something and it's just not on their streaming platform, what could the reasons be behind it aside from they don't want to take up bandwidth of something else that they think is going to be more popular? I mean, going to sell more ad revenue.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand, because I feel like I look at like Warner Brothers. Because Warner Brothers owns all the MGM titles from like 1980 to the beginning of MGM. On top of it, they have a hell of a library, and like, I know they drop stuff on there. Occasionally, like Clute will be on fucking
Like, why
HBO Max.
Like, why not have every fucking thing you own available? Period.
Well, that's the other thing. It's because, like, you know, if you make things hard to get to, that's when, like, piracy becomes a big thing. Or that kind of stuff. But a lot of these people aren't pirating, like, classic movies. They're probably pirating stuff on the streaming service that they're not willing to pay for.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. But I'm just saying, like, you know, I do see streamers put up stuff, but it's like, you know, weird, you know, like I guess Hulu, which is owned by Disney or whatever now, would put up Die Hard for Christmas or something like that. But like, there's a whole fucking, you know, archive of shit that like, just put a couple titles up. Just see how they do. Like, just give shit a chance. Like, you know, obviously not a lot of people are going to engage with Zardoz, but if you put it up there, like, someone would be like, oh shit, Zardoz is on streaming. All it takes is like the right person that like can say, I don't know why I'm picking Zardoz. It's a fucking weird movie, but like just something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, just, I feel like just the access to stuff, and I feel like the lack of access to like classic cinema. So when like people just hear it talked about, and like the other thing is like, if you hear something that's talked about and everyone's like, well, they could buy it a Blu-ray. Not everyone's a fucking physical media collector. And also because video stores, I know they still exist, aren't really a strong suit, and the people that go to video stores are already fucking cinephiles. Right. They're not really bringing in a new audience. They're not tapping into that audience that whatever's curated on a streaming service is all they're going to engage with.
So if the streaming services acted more as an archive, you know, obviously that would be incredible.
And I don't think there's any reason not to, because like they have HD masters, because like a lot of that stuff will play on HBO or whatever fucking whoever owns it, because they're making masters for Blu-rays, they're making masters for DCPs. It's not that far off.
Yeah. Like, is there any benefit to them, you know, Blu-ray sales wise, to keep something off of the streaming platform? Like, do they really?
No.
Is that a strategic move, do you think, for any of the studios?
No, because like because that market it's not dead, but it's not as strong. Like, you know, as much as people talk about like, you know, boutique labels like Criterion, Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, etc., like that's a very specific demographic. You know, your average fucking like person is not buying like a Blu-ray. Yeah, they're still buying DVDs if they're buying anything, but like because of what streaming has done, DVD sales are down. Right. Because I think there's the interview with Matt Damon on Hot Ones of all things, and they asked him about like, you know, why, you know, kind of like more like the mid-range art house movie doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And he said, you know, I'm paraphrasing, I might not get this exact, but like what he ended up saying is like at the time, the studio would take a chance on a $50 million like kind of art house movie, and it might be a surprise hit, it might get nominated for some awards, but at the end of the day, it would sell a shit ton of DVDs. And most things would like at least break even, if not make money in the end, because the way streaming is, and because like the rental market and people buying stuff is now very, very narrow margin. When you don't have that money to recoup, you're taking less chances, which is also why the kind of movies that get made now. And obviously you have distributors like Neon or A24 and like, you know, Focus, which is like an offshoot of like, you know, Universal, whatever. Like, you still have art house brands, but like those, they're not fucking cranking them out like they used to. Yeah. And in fact, like they're very strategic, and a lot of them, if they're not going to do well, they'll just go straight to streaming. And that's the other thing. It's like, you know, a lot of the like Oscar contenders, you know, there's a good portion of people that don't ever fucking see those movies.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And like, I know we live in LA and like all those things will play here, but like, you know, something like Tar probably isn't. I mean,
yeah, that's not on most people's radar. Banshees of Inisherin is not on most people's radar. Like the shit that's just normal. That's just kind of normal to us.
Yeah. But like, if they get nominated, then they get a second life. But like Oscars and all that, it's a marketing game. It's like, you know, they have like I think 10 movies up for like Best Picture or whatever. And then people will go see what won the Oscar, and then most people will complain about it because like it's usually something that like isn't really a traditional audience movie, or like it's something hard to you know, it's like it's weird when you get something kind of commercial that wins an Oscar. Like,
Right. Like, did everyone go out and did everyone figure out a way to see Parasite a couple years ago when that won all those awards? And then what did the average like non, cinephile think of something like that?
I mean, it won an Oscar. People went and saw it. I think people complained because it was subtitled because that's just going to be.
Yeah, I forget that people just are like that.
That's how people are.
It's fine.
And then it hit Hulu just I think right as the pandemic was starting and all that. So it's like, that's the only time. But like,
something like that can be a gateway to
check it out.
Yeah,
like
people now seeing like Decision to Leave and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Parasite should open the door to more Korean cinema, just like RRR is going to probably open door to more like Tollywood, Bollywood, and that kind of stuff, which I think is cool because I feel like these are long established like countries that have a very specific kind of like film they make. I'm not saying they all make the same exact thing, but like like it's kind of cool that people are now engaging with like an action movie musical. I know we've kind of talked about it. It's like people dancing in the aisles for like RRR, and like I don't know how I think about it because I haven't seen RRR in a theater, and I'm not gonna knock it.
Did you actually see it at all? Or
I haven't seen it all yet, but like I've seen enough of the people dancing at the end or whatever, and like the thing is, it's like to me on the outside looking in, I'm like I don't know what I think about this, but then going back to what I said earlier, that's part of that communal experience. The communal experience is that people were so overjoyed and so fucking like taken by this movie that like when that fucking song hits, people are fucking getting up and dancing in front of the screen. Yeah. And that's cool too. Like honestly. Because like, there's part of me is like, that's a little much, but then like, is that any different than like cheering during a big action scene in a fucking like Chuck Norris or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis movie?
Right.
It's just the expression of like enjoying the cinema. And I think it comes from a pure place and not just like, it's not ironic.
But also just like the people that were talking about earlier that are laughing though, right? Is like some of that is just contagious.
Yeah.
Some of it's performative. Some of it's genuine.
Yeah.
Some of it's,
It's all those things. And like, that's part of the communal experience. And like, no rep screening is going to ever be exactly the same. And I sometimes say that for movies. It's like, when you play a 35 millimeter print, the next time it plays, it's going to be a completely different film because it can be scratched. Some damage could happen. Lots of things can happen. Like it's getting older. Like if it's a film that's fading, it could be a little bit more red, like that kind of stuff. So every, at least film experience, actually anytime you screen a movie, it's a completely different experience. Like, I've seen some movies multiple times in the theater. I've seen like things play like gangbusters one time and then fall flat. Yeah. And it had a lot of contributing factors to it. So I know we just kind of went on a tangent here, the kind of kick off a podcast where we're talking about what we're screening, but I think it's a valuable thing to talk about is like, my end thing is there's no right or wrong way to engage with a movie. There's a preferred way. There's a preferred way you would like to see a movie with a crowd, just like I have a preferred way to see it with a crowd. But like, film is a communal experience, and like you're right. Sometimes if someone starts laughing at something because they're uncomfortable, or maybe they think they're above it, it becomes contagious. But that doesn't mean the end result is that they think the movie's this big fucking joke. Maybe their takeaway is like, yeah, they're laughing at something that may come off as dated, or laughing at something very inappropriate. But
like when I go to see a film, I'm hoping that myself included, that when we're all leaving, we all feel like our fucking day is ruined.
Well, yeah,
that's how I like to see a movie.
Well, I mean,
so if people are laughing, that's not a good time. That's not a good time for me.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I go to the cinema to get my day ruined. I love it.
Well, send that Vertigo audience to fucking Irreversible because I think it's getting ready to have a re-release soon.
Cool. Yeah, I see that. I've seen some talk lately, and I already own the Blu-ray here, but that they're gonna do the straight cut.
They're gonna
the domestic version.
They're gonna do the straight cut, and they're gonna do the regular version. I think. When I was in Denver, they played a trailer for it.
Yeah.
Oh, and kind
of played a trailer for the straight cut.
Yeah, for the straight cut. But speaking of communal experience, I kind of want to talk about this because I just did Autopsy, like, I guess last week. We're still in January as we're recording this, and I'm going to be doing Death Laid Egg tomorrow, and I'm going to be flying to Chicago to introduce Tightrope at the Music Box with William Morris. Shout out Will. And for, January Jala stuff. So I had Barry Primus show up to intro and talk about the movie. And Barry wasn't really a fan of the movie. Like, he's like, I got stories about how weird this fucking whole process was. And, like, cool. So what happened during the Q&A, he was talking about all the weird things. Like, I didn't realize I was a Formula One fucking race car driver who became a priest in this movie, that kind of shit. And, like, he's just talking about ridiculous. There's a scene, it's like, well, how was I supposed to find the guy? And he's like, the director told me instinct. Like, and he was just kind of like, for those of you who don't know how Italian films are made, and this is everything from Fellini to Argento to Fulci to fucking even Burial Ground, they don't shoot sync sound. They just don't. And a lot of it has to do with, like, a lot of international cast, and depending on how they have people run their lines in the movie, sometimes they're doing phonetic English because they're trying to get into an English market. Sometimes everyone just speaks their native language, so you have one person speaking English, and then what they do is they loop things. And, like, his other complaint is like, it's missing a lot of sound or whatever, and it's like a lot of it just depends on, like, how much money they put into it after the fact. But what happened during the Q&A is Barry turned the crowd and kind of turned it on them. It was like, why don't you tell me why you like these kind of movies? And I'm kind of glad he did, because, like, a bunch of people actually told him, like, sincerely, why they like those movies. Mm-hmm. Which is another form of communal experience, because then, you're talking to someone who doesn't, someone who's in one of those movies who fucking doesn't get it and doesn't understand, like, obviously he's like, would rather been in like a Fellini movie or a Sergio Leone movie or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then by the time where people were talking genuinely sincerely, like, they're like, I like these movies because they're crazy, but I think they're interesting. They don't really make them like this anymore. Like, talk about, like, he's great in the movie, regardless of the fact that, like, he probably had no fucking clue what was going on. And, like, Mimsy Farmer is fucking fantastic, and so is Ray Lovelock. And, like, Mimsy Farmer, who's been in a ton of these, gialli films and stuff, I think she said something along the lines of, like, I know there's a lot of fans for these movies. I'm just not one of them. Mm-hmm. But I think Barry was just trying to get to the core, is like why people like these kind of movies, and people actually took the time and did it. And, it's kind of hard to, like, turn a Q&A on the audience and, like, put it on them. It's like, why are you even here? Why do you like this shit? That's awesome. And it was fucking great, and people gave some really good answers. So, again, that's communal experience, and, like, again, each screening is different. Like, if Barry Primus had been there, people would have watched Autopsy, but because he's there, they had to really think about why they chose to engage with it and why they engage with it. So, that's us talking about engaging with art, as in the cinema arts, a little bit of music and all that. So, yeah, why don't we take a quick commercial break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about Killer Obsession for the February lineup for Cinematic Void at the Los Feliz 3 after these messages.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. C.T. Cobb and the following messages. Cobb Theaters welcomes your suggestions. Our primary concern is your comfort and enjoyment. Thanks for not smoking. It's the law. There's still time to visit our snack bar for popcorn, snacks, ice-cold Coca-Cola, and Diet Coke. Try the Cobster, jumbo popcorn, and 64-ounce Coke. Please deposit litter in trash receptacles as you exit the auditorium. The perfect gift for any occasion, gift certificates are available at the box office. Please don't talk during the movie. Thanks for visiting with us. Buckle up and drive safely. See you next week. And now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back. We've been talking about the audience experience in a movie theater, so I figured let's talk about some things that will be playing in the movie theater very soon, at least Lost Fields 3. This is going to be the February lineup for Cinematic Void. And the theme or title I gave it is Killer Obsession. Why Killer Obsession? Because it's, law enforcement that is obsessed with catching a serial killer. So, 4 movies every Monday at Lost Fields 3. I figured we just kind of break down the lineup and talk about the why. Now, if you remember from the last podcast, I briefly mentioned there was a different theme of bad love that got vetoed, but at the end of the day, I think this might be I don't want to say better lineup, but it's a little fitting that like the last thing that's playing January Giallo is I Know Who Killed Me, and that's, Neo Giallo, Jason, or whatever. And a lot of these share that. And a couple of these actually played in theaters for their other places during January Giallo, other venues. And this first one actually played Cinema Salem when Kate Lynch did her January Giallo double feature there. And I don't think you've seen this movie, have you?
No.
It is a really good, sleazy kind of like crime movie. It's produced by Roger Corman. It's directed by Kat Shea, who also did the first Poison Ivy and a bunch of other stuff. I think she did the new Nancy Drew kind of thing that was on HBO like maybe a year, might be a couple years now because pandemic brain, I don't know what fucking time it is. It is a movie called Stripped to Kill.
Stripped to Kill.
Good Lord, who do you have to blow to get an air conditioner around here?
Hey,
I think Killer just peed on my bra.
you go on next.
I don't have anything to wear.
Perfect.
She knows what to do with her body and eyes. In the smoky zoo, she's a master of lies, and she dances for you. You're the only one. Then her body takes flight. She's only having fun, and just for a while, you can deny the night. Deny the night. Deny the night. Deny the night.
A maniac is killing strippers.
Great, a stripper. How are they gonna keep this quiet?
Detective Sheehan has the only weapon that can stop him. Her body.
And it's more than just going out there and turning them on. It's like something's cutting loose.
Yes, I will burn you down. Don't cross the line. La,
You are a cop.
Stripped to Kill. One woman's fantasy becomes every woman's nightmare.
Now, this movie is basically about a cop that goes undercover as a stripper to catch a serial killer that is killing strippers. And which is kind of unique because it's, again, like a lot of those Corman exploitation movies, like it's empowering to women while still exploiting them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, he made a lot of those like kind of, teacher movies and nurse movies in the 70s, and like, there's a bunch of things, and like Roger Corman would give women chances to direct films, like Stephanie Rothman and Kat Shea being, another one, but then give them very exploitive material to work with. So it's like, it's empowering and it's exploitive. You get a little bit of both.
Is that done intentionally? Like, is he letting these women direct these films so that he can get away with? Is that purely the reason? Really, though, is he just trying to get away with something that he can't if he had directed himself, and then so he just hands it off? Or
no, because
or what's the purpose behind that?
Because he produced plenty of exploitation, sexploitation, that kind of stuff. Okay. Like you look at the whole 70s New World catalog, like every movie's rated R, there's nudity, there's violence, there's all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay, so he's just genuinely giving people opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry to accuse here. I'm just asking.
No, but that is a fair question because, like, he he's done it a few times. Like Barbara Peters did stuff like, she did Humanoids from the Deep, although he did kind of take that movie away from her to insert more violence and nudity. But there's Amy Holden Jones that did Slumber Party Massacre. Like, he's done it a few times. And, this is much later. I think this is post New World. It's, I think New Horizon is what the company was by that point. And, it's a really cool film. It's well directed. It's a great sleazy LA movie. And, hey, it's got a cop chasing a serial killer. So that is going to be playing on February 6th, which is the first Monday of, February 2023. I should have probably thought about that before the words came out of my mouth, but here we are. For the second week in February, we're showing a movie that I'm actually getting ready to fly out to host in Chicago at the Music Box with the homie Will Morris, which is Tightrope.
I found one of the bodies near here. They're getting closer.
Closer to what?
Daddy.
To me.
All I'm asking is to be involved in the investigation, all right? Maybe we could put up some warning posters.
But say what? That some nuts going around the city strangling women?
Yeah, why not?
Because we're not sure it's true. All it would do is terrify women all over this city.
Well, maybe it should. Do you investigate many sexual crimes?
Why?
I was wondering if they've had any effect on you.
A cop on the edge. Clint Eastwood. Tightrope.
Tightrope is really, it's, I mean, some of those Dirty Harry movies might have moments, but this is the most like Giallo adjacent American Giallo thing Clint Eastwood was in. And it's really interesting because a lot of people think this is a Dirty Harry movie, and it's not. Clint plays completely different. He's a single dad, keeps picking up stray dogs and taking care of them, and he's also kind of a sex addict. This movie plays off as Clint Eastwood's version of Cruising. And, except more straight, because, Clint's a cop, working in New Orleans, but, he's picking up hookers. He's definitely hinting at he's had gay experiences in the movie. Get to see his bare ass. It's it's a different side of Clint Eastwood. And although he is not credited as the official director, he directed the movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
The rumor has it that, well, if you know anything about Clint's directing style, is Clint don't like to do a lot of takes. Clint's get it done in one. Maybe two if you really need it. And I think the original director, or the credit director, Richard Tuggle, wasn't moving at a pace Clint liked. So I think Clint just took it over and started directing it. And it's a really interesting, really dark movie. It's a really different side of Clint. And I'm kind of excited to be able to watch it twice in short succession. And it's on a nice 35mm print coming out of Warner Brothers. And yeah, I hope people check it out. I hope people curve their expectations of what they think a Clint Eastwood cop movie is, because this ain't it. This is completely different.
So it looks like the director was actually the writer of the film, so he just went, "You're not really a director."
Clint gave him the hook.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie also stars Clint's actual daughter in it, as his daughter in the movie.
I thought you were going to say dog. His dog's in the movie.
Well, it might be his dogs, but you have you definitely have the oh man,
it might be his dogs.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Clint Eastwood having dogs or whatever, but shit.
I'm sorry.
I'll just throw it. But it's beautifully shot in New Orleans. Has a lot of jazz because Clint Eastwood, big jazz head.
Okay.
Like, he directed the Charlie Parker biopic, Bird, and stuff like
sweet.
that. And if you watch Gran Torino, he sings the jazz song at the end. So there's a lot of Clint's interest in there, but it's just, you know, it's really different from him because, like, just how, like, sexual the movie is. Like, it's a real sexual thriller. And the fact that he personally gets down and dirty in it is, like, something else. Like, basically what happens in the movie is the killer starts targeting sex workers that Clint's been with.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that. Wears different masks. It's very, very Giallo-esque. Like, there's lighting. There's like a weird location where I think it's like Mardi Gras floats are like sitting around that Clint's looking around in. It's very well done, and like I hope people check it out because it's a really great American Giallo.
Cool.
And speaking of American Giallo films, we talked about this one, but not in the Giallo adjacent episode. This is going to be what's playing week 3, but we actually talked about it as a baseball doubleheader. Of course, we're talking about Night Game.
For Detective Mike Seeger, America's favorite pastime has just become a matter of life and death.
We've got 6 women killed over a 2.5-month period. Want to get this guy?
What is that, a cleaver? What are we talking? A butcher here? Some goddamn...
What about a hook? You know, like a longshoreman's hook?
Every time Barreto pitches and wins, this guy strikes.
Now, Mike Seeger has to catch the killer before the killer heads for home. Roy Scheider, Night Game.
It's kind of interesting that when we did that baseball episode podcast that it kind of inspired to play both of these movies. We played Blood Games during Camp Void, and that was directly because we did the podcast, and like I was going through the lineup and had to change some shit. It's like, shit, fuck it, let's show Blood Games. And this one, Night Game's just been on my mind. It's like, I kind of want to see it in the theater. I want to see how it plays with the audience. Because we, you know, our big consensus with that movie was like, it's kind of a perennial, like, late afternoon TV movie that you just turn on and just get the plot right away by sitting down to it. So I was like, it'd probably be digital or whatever. But the distributor Park Circus is like, no, we found a print. And I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like really excited to see this fucking movie in a theater with the audience.
Hell yeah.
I mean, obviously Roy Scheider's too old for the role, but like, you know, it's got a serial killer with a hook for a hand. That shit's fucking crazy. There's some gnarly kills in that movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm really stoked for that. And then closing out February, showing I consider one of my all-time favorite movies. And I don't know, it makes you, I don't know, it's the one movie where like I think that it's acceptable to use Inagata Vita. And of course I'm talking about Manhunter.
Mm-hmm.
Intruder entered through kitchen sliding door.
Nationwide victims.
Yeah, this is Will Graham of the FBI.
One killer.
This is what the subject's teeth look like. Have you ever seen blood on the moonlight well?
William, you're gonna make yourself sick or get yourself killed.
multiple trails.
Just you and me now, sport.
One hunter.
I'm not fighting. Damn it.
FBI agent Will Graham. Manhunter.
Now, have you seen Manhunter before?
I mean, the real answer is no. It's no.
Okay.
I've kind of seen it.
We
did it. We did the drive-in.
Oh yeah, we should have the drive-in, but I don't.
But you know, I
don't think
it's not the first time I've put it on and not really paid attention.
I mean,
no offense to that movie. It's on the list.
Well, I mean, again, we're showing like, so for this lineup, 3 of the 4 are on 35. Strip to Kill, like I tried to get a film print. There was 2 options. We went with the first option. That turned out that print was missing title cards and wasn't in very good shape. And then the other print was at archive, and we kind of missed the window of getting it out. So that one's DCP, but Strip to Kill is worth seeing in any format. It's an incredible movie. But the other 3 are on 35. Manhunter being as well. I'm going to recommend you come to see Manhunter.
Cool.
It is my favorite Thomas Harris adaptation, like flat out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I know people love Silence of the Lambs and, you know, Hannibal and whatever, but I just start and stop with fucking Manhunter. Like, straight up. I think the movie's incredible. It's directed by Michael Mann. You know, Michael Mann was, like, on a hell of a streak for a while. He made Heat and, like, Collateral and, like, hell, I even like that fucking Miami Vice movie he made. But, you know, Manhunter, I think, was the first appearances of Hannibal Lecter, except Brian Cox plays him.
Mm-hmm.
It's got William L. Peterson, who, like, feel like should have got more dap for his 80s, like, roles between this and To Live and Die in L.A. And, like, you know, he basically took his Manhunter role and kind of parlayed it into CSI. You got Tom Noonan in it, who's, like, the killer. Fucking, I mean, this movie's just fucking crazy. And again, there's a fucking needle drop for Inagata Vita that's fucking incredible in this movie.
I do know the end scene.
Yeah, we've probably talked about it.
Well, when we screened that at the drive-in, which is today's the last day for the drive-in, by the way.
Oh yeah,
the day that we're recording this is the last day for the Mission Tiki drive-in.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of bittersweet because like during 2020 when Beyond Fest and Cinematheque started doing those shows, like shit, that was one of the things that got us out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was, we talk about the communal experience. Like you can have a communal film going experience even in a drive-in like that. Those shows pulled a lot of people together and like gave people comfort and like, you know, sense of community when like everyone was like forced to be like 6 feet or more apart.
We screened Manhunter. We talked through the whole thing, but then at the end, you made me watch the end with the Inagata Vita, all that.
Dude,
so,
it is one of the greatest fucking sequences. Like that scene is fucking nuts. There's like jump cuts in it, like fucking Tom Noonan walks through a poster of Mars. I know I'm spoiling it for people, but goddamn it, like there's no spoiling Manhunter because that fucking ending is just nuts.
Yeah.
Dude, when the fucking drums kick in and he fucking busting through, God damn it. Just, if you're in LA and you haven't seen Manhunter, go see fucking Manhunter at this screening. I think that's going to be the first one that sells out of these 4. I think they're all going to do pretty good. I think Night Game's going to be the sneaky one. Someone's probably played it rep-wise at some point, but not in recent history.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope people also come and check out Tightrope. I actually hope everyone comes out and checks them all out. When I posted this lineup, someone reposted and said, like, Cinematic Void never misses. I'm like, don't say that shit because then if I have a bad month, it's going to be hard. But, like, honestly, I think this is one of the...
You sold me on Tightrope.
Yeah,
For sure. I'm itching to come out for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think all 4 are bangers. Like, straight up bangers. And I'm not saying that because I picked them, but, like, you know, some months when you take a theme, it works better than others, and this one just hit on all cylinders.
It's a kind of a cool down from January Giallo. You know, it's kind of the after party.
It is because there's a lot of Giallo adjacent, you know, things in these movies. Actually, all 4 of them have some of them more or lesser degree, depending on what it is. But it's also like, you know, you get into procedural movies. Like, it's like, you know, the inner workings because every movie has someone that's obsessed with catching a killer and going to whatever lengths they have to. And, you know, one has a person going undercover to be a stripper to catch something, and they end up falling in love with stripping, you know, which is kind of nice that Strip to Kill plays right after I Know Who Killed Me because of that stripper angle. Yeah. And you know, kind of throwing back to January Giallo, as we're recording this, I Know Who Killed Me actually sold out today as of this recording, which I'm super stoked for, because like director Chris Sievertson is coming, doing a Giallo fashion show, and like I'm kind of curious of what the audience is, and this is going to come back to like, how do you set it up for the audience? Because all month long I've been just singing the praises that this is my favorite Neo Giallo, and we actually watched it because I usually, when I know I have to do a Q&A pre-prep, and you're like, dude, let's just fucking watch it and throw it on, and like there's a lot of great stuff in that movie.
Oh yeah.
And I know we're getting off talk about February, but like I'm also happy that someone went on the I Know Who Killed Me Wikipedia page and like noted like Cinemac Void included in his 2023 January Giallo series, and I'm like, whoever did that, thank you.
Very cool.
Because like I would like to have at least a little small part in the reevaluation of this. And I know there's been people singing this movie's praises since it actually came out. But I feel like I think it's time for it to have its, like, dare I say, Halloween 3 moment. Mm-hmm. Where, like, a movie that people have fucking shit on and maligned for, like, unfair reasons gets its flowers, so to speak.
I had a fucking blast watching this the other day, dude. I'm in love with that movie. You know, it's really great for a lot of fucking reasons, and I don't know if this podcast is gonna come out before that actually screens. I'm not sure, but and it's already sold out. We're not talking anybody into buying tickets, but goddamn, bro, it's brutal, dude. It's fucked up. Some of it's fucked up.
Yeah, and I also think it's the perfect transition movie from January Giallo to February's lineup of Killer Obsession.
Oh yeah, it really is. It really, really is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I know it's, you know, early in 2023, but like I'm gonna toot my own horn. Fuck it. This is a Cinemac Boy podcast. I can do that. I think like the first 2 months I've like put together have been some of my favorite shit. You know. This, I'll say, kind of talking about January Giallo this year, like it is outsold overall better than last year's lineup at the Los Feliz 3. And there's some contributing factors, but like, you know, people were coming out, and I'm glad people were taking chances, because like, you know, not a lot of people have seen a lizard in a woman's skin, and I knew that was going to sell out because of the rarity of the print, but I knew Who Killed Me was going to be the sneaky one, the one.
Bringing it back to the original conversation here. I know Who Killed Me is going to be a great experiment in, you know, the influence that you can have on the screening, and will this crowd take that film more seriously now, and not. There's some ridiculous things. There's some, you know, we laughed at maybe some non-comedic moments the other night, but all in all, dude, it's so good though. It's so good, and yeah, some of it is actually, it's funny, it's goofy, it's different for.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's quirked up.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's like the movie was made how it was supposed to be made, and I think like this screening coming up is like people are coming into it excited to see it.
Cool.
Not excited to come fucking mock it.
Yeah, great.
I think people are going to come in willing to engage with it on the terms of like this is a American.
Either like, oh, I'm stoked to see this for the first time, or I'm stoked to see this again and potentially under a new lens.
Yeah, the mix,
and just people that actually know that it's great.
Well, it's a good mix of people, because I've actually talked to people like outright. It's like, dude, I remember when I like was a projectionist, Andrew Furtado, who works for Severn.
Mm-hmm.
He called me. He's like, dude, I'm so excited you're playing this, because I remember working in a movie theater and playing it, and like doing when we did the tech check on running it. And he's like, I was just like, this movie's gonna be huge, and then no one showed up.
Fuck.
Because he's like, it's just so insane. It's like, it's incredible that like a studio greenlit this, which kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. Just like studios taking chances on stuff, and like this was pre-streaming area. Like obviously, like Lindsay Lohan being attached to I Know Who Killed Me gives it extra little cachet, but then what was happening to her at the time kind of like skewed that, you know. But I do think the film is genuinely a fucking great film, and it's definitely a great example of American Giallo. And yeah, there's some modern quirks in it, but you know, at this point, I think we mentioned on the podcast that Chris has been coming to the screenings, and like I've talked to him a little bit about like each thing I've been showing along the way. So I'm actually really excited to sit down and like, you know, talk about like the nuts and bolts of this. Obviously, people are going to want to know about the Lindsay Lohan shit, but like I'm less interested in that because I think she's really great in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in like influences putting them together because the movie's just so well constructed. And I think when we were doing the research, we're talking through as we're watching it. I mean, obviously we're watching it, but we're also talking in terms of like, holy shit, check this out. Look at that. It's just like we noticed some things and then we kind of looked it up and kind of confirmed it. It's like, okay, that's cool because there's definitely Twin Peaks vibes and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're now not talking about the February lineup, but I think I Know Who Killed Me is the transition that got us the Killer Obsession, which I think is like, I don't think I've done a January Giallo lineup that flowed so seamlessly into the next month. Yeah. And that's also coming out from having done a year of like weekly screenings. And I don't think March is gonna probably shift gears, and it probably should, because then if you're doing the same thing, you're just showing a similar thing every week, it's not gonna work the same. But I think coming out of January Giallo and showing some fucking good like serial killer, like cop procedural, like thrillers it's a good switch. Yeah. And for those still kind of aching for like, I want more of that Giallo goodness, you're going to get a little taste of it still. Little January Giallo leftovers in February. That is the lineup coming to the Los Feliz 3 in February for Cinematic Void. We're going to take one last break, but when we return, it's going to be Read, Watch, and Listen here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
The management of this theater, in cooperation with the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's Office, requests that you take a moment to look around the theater and familiarize yourself with the location of all emergency exits, the aisleways in which you entered, and the passageways designated by the illuminated emergency exit signs visible to you at either the right or left of the forward section have been checked and are clear exits from the building in the event of an emergency. Thank you for your time and attention.
Welcome back. It's now time for the Cinematic Void Podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. Now, normally we have a little bit more of a gap between this, so this is do we just record like once a week now? Yeah. Wow. That's good. Wow, we're getting back in the swing of things. But all right, Nick, I know it's not been that long. Why don't you tell me what you've been reading, watching, and or listening to?
All right. So after our last podcast where we talked about the films of Dario Argento, specifically Tenebrae and Deep Red, you had mentioned the Broken Mirrors, Broken Minds book by Maitland McDonough. So I bought that when I was editing the podcast. I heard you say it again, and I was like, "Oh fuck, let me see." And I saw the cover, and the cover of this specific edition is from when the scene in Suspiria where she climbs into like the basement window and falls into the pit of
razor wire.
Yeah. That's the cover of this book, which has also been like the gatefold of the LP of the soundtrack. But just the best, one of the best parts of the film. But just the cover is so incredible, and you had recommended it during the podcast, so I just grabbed it, and I've been skimming through that a little bit. So that's my read. Watch. I don't know. I can't even remember when we did the podcast.
It was last week.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been on a big David Mamet kick, so I've been watching a bunch of his stuff that he both everything that he wrote, but then only some of it he directed. But like State and Maine, Glengarry Glen Ross, which I didn't know that the phrase coffee is for closers. I didn't realize that was from that film. It's just like a weird kind of like a meme phrase I've kind of heard around for years, Had no clue.
That movie is still incredible, and it's also even more incredible when you think there's two actors that got canceled for completely different reasons in that movie.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm talking about Baldwin and Kevin Spacey,
mm-hmm.
which is just insanity.
Yeah, and then plus obviously just not everyone loves David Mamet's politics, for that matter, or whatever. He's not exactly he's not exactly welcomed these days.
Yeah, he kind of just, this has only been like maybe the last say 5 years. He took he might have been always conservative, but he took
a major sharp turn.
He took the hard right.
But recently I watched Oleana, State and Maine, Glengarry, Glen Ross, Spartan, Wag the Dog, The Verdict, American Buffalo. Like I straight up went in, and we podcasted like 3 days ago. so I don't know, but I'm kind of making it a point this year to not only go through like filmographies like that, but just to be more of a completist and like check off the stuff, like, just check some of the boxes off of stuff that I haven't seen that are just like, oh, fucking, I've seen every Kubrick except for fucking Barry Lyndon. Like I need to make sure I see Barry Lyndon this year. That's how I've decided that I'm watching film this year. Like I want to got the complete filmography going on.
Damn. Are you gonna rewatch Edmund? Because I know we talked about this.
Yeah. And like I said, I didn't love it, but and I watched it because it was Stuart Gordon. And actually, in one of the David Mamet interviews that I listened to recently, he was talking about that Stuart Gordon was originally was directing plays in Chicago, and that's how they met. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, there's the Organic Theater. That's a lot of Stuart Gordon started directing like pretty transgressive and like theater in Chicago, and like he did a lot of Mamet plays, and like him working there was kind of what led to him doing Reanimator. So it's I'm gonna just hijack it for a second.
Yeah,
just
please.
say late era Stuart Gordon is some of the best like late career fucking filmmaking from any genre director, because it just went off the fucking hinges. Edmund is, you might not liked it back then, but I think you'll like it a lot more now. Edmund's a fucking incredible movie. Like King of Spiders, another late Stuart Gordon, fucking just nasty.
It's a sick one, yeah.
And Stuck, like his late run is like, I can't think of another genre filmmaker that had like a resurgence in a way where like they were just freeing, because they were doing like
his Masters of Horror was one of the best ones.
Oh yeah, both of them he did. The I know there's the Edgar Allan Poe one he did with Jeffrey Combs. What's the other one?
Is it Pelt?
No, that was the Argento one.
Oh, he did. I'm sorry. I didn't like the two that he did.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I'm trying to think who's the one that but he did The Black Cat and Dreams in the Witch House. And I didn't love either of those. Dreams of the Witch House had the guy that was also in Dagon.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I kind of like both of those, but like, who else? That new Del Toro show. I guess it's not new now. It's was like was it Cabinet of Curiosities?
Yeah, that's the one.
What's her name? Who directed Twilight? Directed a new version of Dreams of the Witch House, which which I think there's a kind of cool, creepy witch in it, but I didn't really like that episode. I think it's just
that's an unadaptable story. Maybe people just leave it alone.
Yeah, it's like I know they took 5 pages of whatever Reanimator was and made an 85-minute movie out of it.
That's true. That is very true.
And Stewart's usually pretty good at his Lovecraft, but getting back to like when he just like said fuck it and just went for it, like in that late part of his career, like I think it's extraordinary stuff. And especially like if you're on the Mamet kick, make sure you watch Edmund. That's the main point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go in on that again. And that's what I've been watching. And listen wise, I'm still on the post rock kick with the like Tortoise and all that stuff. And then just a lot of karate, Slint, Codeine, quiet, slow, sad. It's been raining a lot here.
Yeah, it's the weather's fucking with me. My like half my face is congested right now, which is winter in LA for me. Like everyone's like, I don't know, every year I deal with this shit. It's like, man, I just want to live in like a fall climate year round. I don't think they exist anywhere. Yeah. But if I could find it where like if I can find a place where fucking I just see orange leaves year round and it's like, gets to maybe 55, 65 degrees, that's where I'm moving. Build me a fucking theater that I can screen shit. I want to live in that place. I don't know where it is. If you know where that is, let me know. I'm going to have to retire at some point, so let me know where I'm retiring to. All right. Again, for my read, I ain't read shit, but I'm getting there. I got rid of a bunch of my books when I just recently moved, and I got nothing but film books, so I guess I could thumb through some of those, but just not reading. Still doing a lot of writing, which is not reading, so can't really talk about it because it's not right. Watch and listen. It's rewatch and listen. Watch wise, because it's January Giallo, it's still been, watching quite a bit of those. And there's one I want to highlight because I just forgot how incredible the movie is. I always liked it. It's the Red Queen Kills 7 Times. And it's, it's got Barbara Boucher in it. It's got a fucking absolute goddamn banger of a score by Bruno Nicolai. And, man, it's good. It's just fucking great. It's directed by Emilio Mergali, who also did The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. Both of them kind of like gothic horror giallo films. But like, fuck. Red Queen Kills 7 Times. One of the essential fucking giallo films. And like, goddamn, it's so good. Because we watched I Know Who Killed Me, and, there was a lot of the Lynches in it. I watched some Twin Peaks stuff. I watched the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Watched it really late at night, which is not a good late night movie by any stretch of imagination. All those fucking Laura Palmer screams are like, I don't know. It's a fucking traumatic movie.
Yeah, totally.
And then because it's on the Blu-ray, I watched The Missing Pieces, which are all those deleted and extended scenes, and like, I can see why David cut those.
Is that The Missing Pieces on the Criterion?
It's on the Criterion one, so
okay. I have to grab that.
And then I watched the original Twin Peaks pilot just to kind of revisit it. I was gonna watch the whole like show again, but I was like, you know what? There's some of those episodes I don't need to revisit.
Is it the pilot that's like the hour and a half long?
Yeah, the Euro cut one, whatever. So I watched that, and then I just skipped to Twin Peaks: The Return, and I watched a few of those episodes the other night. God damn, that show's still good.
Cool. I really need to check out The Return, man.
I mean, fuck, well, I'll just bring it over. We'll just watch it.
Yeah.
I'm only 4 episodes deep, so like.
You down to start it over?
I'm down to start it over because it's just fucking insane, like how fucking good it is, and like it'll never happen again. Mostly because a lot of the people since then, a lot of those people are now no longer with us.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad. But like, I think it's the extraordinary. It's like it pushes what's a miniseries, what's a TV show, and what's a really fucking long 18-hour movie.
Yeah, and
I don't know. As I was logging in a letterbox, I just logged in it by episode, so it's going to look like I watched it 18 times when it's just, they count as a full runtime. But it's like, I feel weird just like clicking it once when I'm watching one episode. So I don't know how to log on letterbox. It's weird that certain shows you can log on letterbox, but other ones you can't. Like, I think that's also the reason why I didn't watch the other Twin Peaks stuff, because I couldn't log it.
Yeah,
well, it's weird because it's like newer TV shows. Like there's shit on Netflix. There are clearly 8 individual episodes that they'll put as like one thing. I'm sure.
I don't just. It seems kind of random, but yes, there's plenty of things that I definitely have logged. You can log The Rehearsal. You can log. There's plenty of television shows.
I was gonna see if Stranger Things was on there. Actually, Stranger Things isn't, which is kind of shocking. I was just going to pull it up just as an example. I'm like, oh, well, the example is going to pull up isn't on there. So it seems kind of arbitrary. I wonder if it's like, if it's one director, one singular vision, that's why it is. I don't know. That I don't have any other reasoning for it. But like, yeah, Twin Peaks, the Red Queen Kills 7 Times. I watched a couple out of movies from the Vinegar Syndrome Homegrown Horror Volume 2. I watched kind of a weird... I don't know how you would kind of like supernatural kind of horror movie called Hanging Heart. I don't know if I liked it, didn't hate it, just kind of in between. Then I watched the one called Dead Girls, which again, I think there's some good stuff in it. Don't know, love it, don't like hate it. I don't know. It's like a lot of regional horror stuff. It's like you either grabs onto you or not. The third movie in the set I've actually seen called Moonstalker, which I think I played. I know I played it back on the virtual Camp Void I did during the pandemic, during the Cinematis movie, and that triple feature, and kind of like that, and I kind of want to revisit it as a good looking version, so that's on the plate. Listen wise, it's still stuck on that Songs for the Willow, One Step Closer EP, but some other things came out. A new song by Liars Academy, I'm Being Followed, which is quite a little banger. Couple things you sent my way, including Teenage Wrist, Earth is a Black Hole, specifically the song Wasting Time. Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Those guys can write a fucking song, man.
That it's a song and a fucking half. Other things I've listened to, another new song from Narrowhead. They have an album coming out called Moments of Clarity, and I guess they keep dropping tracks until the whole album comes out. Another band, You Hit Me To, which been around for a while, but I just missed because I don't know. You're my music plug, as they say.
Okay, what's this one?
It's Basement, Color Me, and Kindness. Because the other day we were watching like different bands on YouTube, like kind of newer, like, you know, new gaze and like indie rock and like that kind of stuff. And we were, you know, commenting on some of the bands were really lacking like stage presence and performance, where the records sound so good, and then you watch them live, it's like, yeah, musically it's there. It's just like the album doesn't translate to the live. But then you're like, check this out, and this band Basement, like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
you not even heard the studio version yet, but the live sounds so complete. It's
yeah,
like, goddamn.
Yeah, it's fucking Jesus Christ. What? There's a couple other things I've been listening to, because I actually listened to this today after watching movie. Was Bruno Nicolai's soundtrack to Red Queen Kills 7 Times. Fucking just the earworm of a fucking Giallo soundtrack. And because just saw Autopsy, been listening to Ennio Morricone's score to Autopsy. So another banger of a Giallo soundtrack. That one a little more avant-garde, because that was Morricone kind of shifted between his like really weird avant-garde scores and then like kind of more traditional stuff. Like I know everyone loves the spaghetti westerns, but I think his Giallo period is some of his finest work.
Cool.
And you know, from the Argento Animal trilogy through things like, you know, Autopsy and shit. He did A Lizard in Women's Skin, which is another fucking banger of a soundtrack. So, you know, love those Morricone Giallo soundtracks. But that wraps up this episode of the Cinematic Void podcast. If you're in LA and you're looking for a killer February, make sure you check out Killer Obsession over at Lost Fuels 3. And, you know, give us some feedback. Hit us up on the socials. Tell us what you think about the February lineup. Tell us what you think about January Giallo. Or maybe just tell us what you think about the podcast in general. You know, feedback is good. Otherwise, we're doing this in, you know, kind of a void, so to speak. And speaking of the void, until next time, see you in the void.
Hello, I'm John Waters, and I'm supposed to announce there is no smoking in this theater, which I think is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of in my life. How can anyone sit through a length of a film, and especially a European film, and not have a cigarette? But don't you wish you had one right now? And I'm telling you that smoke anyway. It gives ushers jobs, and if people didn't smoke, there would be no employment for the youth of today. So once again, no smoking in this theater.